There was something you said earlier I want to go back to, which was about elevating the mortgage broker in Canada specifically. And I'm curious, this is something I think about often. I had the privilege of watching that journey transpire throughout the United States. I mean, at one point, mortgage brokers were a huge part of the market. You have the crash, mortgage brokers, a lot of them just, get out of the industry entirely. And then you had the period from roughly, I want to say 2014 to today, where mortgage brokers are thriving over there. You look at Australia, you look at the UK and other countries, and you see what mortgage brokers are able to do. Even in the time that I've been operating in the Canadian market, going back to 2020 now, I think we went from 20% to roughly 40% mortgage broker market share. And that number fluctuates depending on the number of renewals going on at any given time. And of course, rates play a factor. But one thing I've often talked about is we don't have a got milk question mark for Canadian mortgage brokers. Like there is no true organizational structure, and it feels very siloed in the mortgage broker community. And I don't think the public understands the true value of mortgage brokers. So when you say that, I get excited, but I do also question for myself sometimes, and I want to pose it to you, which is like, how do we measure success outside of mortgage broker market share in this industry for mortgage brokers such that we can elevate the entire broker community?
Such a great way to think about it, right? Because, we often think about like market share or revenue or volume as kind of, the key indicator, right, of success of what anybody does. But as we all know, like there's so many more layers and there's so much more that goes into it. I think one of the things that is often not talked about is, what you just shared about just the elevation of market share. And I know that's not the specific question, but I just want to touch on it quickly. So yeah, we went from 20% to 40%. I think we peaked over 50% at a certain point a couple of years ago. We've kind of dipped back below, but I'm very certain that we will be, in and around that 60-70% range within the next few years. And I don't know exactly what the next few years means, whether it's 1 year, 2 year, or 5 years, but I think within that next near future, mortgage brokers certainly do have the majority market share. But what does that then mean, right? And what does that mean to what we're talking about? Well, now we're talking about how many Canadian small business owners that are now contributing back to the economy in multiple different ways. So how many mortgage brokers do we know that hire multiple assistants and social media managers and marketing firms and sales managers and, infrastructural support, admin teams, payroll, compliance that are needed to operate these businesses? So now we have small businesses that turn into, employers, and, what were solo entrepreneurs are now funding, tax dollars back into the economy. They're funding other ways of supporting Canadian job growth and other ways of us kind of giving back towards what I referred to as this economic fabric. So I think that's one way of looking at the success of it. I think another way of looking at the success of it is the fundamental impact that we have on the lives of Canadians. And I always talk about my parents as immigrants coming into this country and leaving their homeland in search of better opportunity for us, and the responsibility that we have, that I believe I have as kind of this next generation, first generation born son of immigrants. I believe that if they left everything behind for more opportunity for me, I better seize some of that opportunity and kind of do everything I can in my power to achieve that for them, because they sacrificed a lot. The reason I bring that up is how big a part was that dream of home ownership for them, and how big a part was that ability to have a roof, a safe roof. Let me refer to that, actually, a safe roof over their family's head. Because a lot of people that come into this country, which sometimes we take for granted, might have a roof over their head where they come from, but it's not safe for them, or they don't feel it's a place where they feel safe and secure, where they can raise their kids with freedom and expression and happiness and memories and laughter and tears and all of those things that we remember when we think about our time in our homes. I think that's another way to measure success, is like when we look at, my parents that bought their first home in the 80s for less than $100,000 and recently downsized and sold it for over $1 million. you know, that ability for them to find financial success, but not just financial success. They found life success. They raised their kids. My grandmother passed away in that home. That's where I held her in my arms. Like, that was a safe place for her. So where I learned to ride my bike, it's where I came when I proposed to my wife. It's where my daughter was born when my house was being built and I had nowhere to go. And my parents said, come stay here. My daughter was raised her first year in that house amongst her grandparents. I think there's so many ways for us to think about success in life outside of just dollars and cents and volume and revenue. And I think that's what the mortgage broker industry, for me anyways, needs to elevate, is that impact that we have, the impact on the lives of other brokers, on the lives of our staff, of our employees, of our agents, of Canadians that we impact every single day. And if we take their money aside for a second, I think that we are incredibly successful as an industry in what we achieve and what we accomplish.
That's really well said. And I couldn't agree more when I think about the impact that mortgage brokers have on homeownership. As a, you know, child of immigrants myself, being able to own a home in the West and raise a family around that compared to, other parts of the world, it's just an incredible impact that we get to make.